Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. We are going to dive into some absolutely fascinating insights from the renowned strategist and author Robert Greene. We're going to decode the hidden forces of human dynamics. We'll break down how we navigate power, how we construct our own inner reality, and crucially, how we actually sustain our most complex relationships. It's like a giant puzzle, and we're putting the pieces together today.
Okay, let's jump right into the roadmap. Today, we're covering 4 key areas: the strategic use of leverage, embracing the amor fati mindset, avoiding the traits of anti-seducers, and finally, navigating long-term relationships. Let's get started. Section 1. The strategic use of leverage, specifically mastering boundaries and applying a touch of fear. When it comes to external power, people often totally dread using their leverage. Why? Because they're terrified of offending someone. But here's the thing. When you don't use the leverage you actually have, you're not being polite. You are literally signaling weakness. You're broadcasting that you can be played. To counter this, Greene advises that you've got to elevate your mind way above the immediate battlefield. You need to be thinking 3, even 4 steps ahead. Sometimes what you think will smooth things over right now, like just giving in to keep the peace, is actually the absolute worst thing you can do for your long-term success. You have to signal that you are not a pushover, even if it causes a little temporary friction. Playing the long game means setting a firm precedent. That way, people know they have to genuinely negotiate with you next time.
Now, there is a fascinating contrast here between love and fear in a strategic setting. Look, love is great, right? But it's also highly ephemeral. People can love you one day, but if you do something that annoys them the next, that love can vanish in a flash. Fear, on the other hand, it is incredibly stable. It's strong, it's grounded, because people know exactly what the price is for crossing the line. They know there's an unmovable boundary, and that inherently commands respect. But of course, you can absolutely take this too far. If you're a boss and your entire staff is just terrified of you, that absolute fear is going to backfire big time. People simply won't tell you the truth anymore. Everything gets completely sugar-coated just to please you. And what happens? You end up in this massive echo chamber where nobody wants to share new ideas, which effectively strips away all the creativity and innovation from your entire team.
And that brings us to this really powerful quote. That occasional use of the whip is much more effective than if you're whipping people all of the time or if you have no whip at all. Now, Greene isn't literally advocating for terror here. He's talking about a touch of fear. It just means establishing strict, crystal-clear limits. You can be a genuinely nice person, giving people the freedom they need to be creative and love their work, but they still need that occasional reminder that if they cross a boundary, there are real consequences.
Section 2. Embracing the amor fati mindset. This is all about unlocking your internal power and consciousness. Greene points out that a personal near-death experience completely shifted his perspective. It made him acutely aware of the insane, unbelievable gift of human consciousness. A gift that, let's be real, most of us completely take for granted every single day. Just think about the number 30,000. That's the number of years of recent human evolution it took to develop these incredibly complex brains we have, which are by far the most complex organisms in the known universe. We walk around wielding this immense, literal superpower, yet we almost never pause to appreciate the sheer magnitude of it.
But here's the crazy part about our internal limitations. We only use about 1/10 of our actual energy. The rest? It's held back by our very own minds. But when we face extreme stress or a really difficult situation, our circumstances force us to adapt. We are literally pushed to tap into those hidden, unused reservoirs of energy. Difficulty is exactly what forces us to change, adapt, learn, and ultimately grow into different, stronger people.
Which brings us to amor fati. This is a genuinely life-altering philosophy. It translates to loving your fate, embracing absolutely everything that happens to you. When you adopt this mindset, bad events aren't actually negative anymore. Instead, they become training exercises. Say you find yourself stuck in a terrible job. Instead of wallowing, your attitude shifts to, okay, I'm going to learn about people here. I'm going to figure out exactly what I hate and what I love. When everything is viewed as a training exercise for your own growth, there is simply no wasted time in your life. Period.
But to get to that mindset, you have to stop overanalyzing everything. Greene points out something so true. Events aren't inherently good or bad. They're just things that happen. It's our human tendency to overthink that ruins perfectly normal, enjoyable moments. If we just think and think and think, we are inevitably going to dig up something negative, right? Letting go of that endless mental loop is absolutely crucial if you want to maintain your internal power. Section 3. The traits of anti-seducers. Let's look at exactly what repels people in social and political spheres.
So, while really skilled seducers are calm, charismatic, and incredibly self-aware, some people unknowingly do the exact opposite. Let's walk through the anti-seductive playbook. These are highly practical behaviors you definitely want to avoid. We're talking about things like mansplaining, explaining exactly what someone else is trying to say, or doing 95% of the talking. Then there's the constant moralizing, preaching to others, endlessly bragging about how great you are, or displaying a vulgarity that just screams a lack of self-control. And the foundational issue tying all these lovely traits together, a massive lack of self-awareness. These individuals literally never look in a mirror or even consider how their behavior is landing with the people standing right in front of them.
Finally, Section 4, navigating long-term relationships and moving beyond that initial spark.
Look, when we first fall for someone, that early phase is often incredibly deceptive. Both people are working overtime to lay out only their absolute best cards. We intentionally disguise our flaws, our dark sides, and the parts of ourselves we might be a little ashamed of. But to survive the long haul, you really have to distinguish between personality and character. Personality is just the mask we wear in social situations to impress people. Character, however, is the underlying strength and those true, deeply held shared values. You have to look under the hood to gauge a partner's true character, instead of just getting lured in by the superficial charm of their personality mask. So the crucial move here is identifying the red flags in a person's character early on. If someone is hypersensitive to any kind of feedback, or if they explode and get totally outraged at the slightest, most basic put-down, that is a massive deal breaker. If they are just bursting with constant insecurities, you are going to spend your entire life walking on eggshells trying to assuage them. An inability to take basic criticism means you just can't have an honest, lasting partnership. It's really that simple. Let's compare what causes an initial spark versus what actually creates a long-term bond. Initial sparks, they rely on superficial charm, best behavior, and totally concealed flaws. But a long-term bond requires a completely different set of tools, a shared sense of humor, the ability to have deep, continuous conversations years down the line, and shared specific interests. In fact, Greene notes that being able to laugh at the exact same things is actually way more important for a lasting bond than just checking a box, like belonging to the same political party. And honestly, it gets incredibly specific. Greene makes this fantastic point, that whether it's a love for cats, dogs, or even cockroaches, sharing quirky, deep-seated passions is essential. Maybe it's a mutual obsession with outer space, or UFOs, or building tiny ships in bottles. Whatever it is, if the other person doesn't share or at least profoundly appreciate those fundamental interests that make you, well, you, it's going to be incredibly hard to maintain genuine interest over a long period of time.
But even if you have those shared values, Greene warns that the absolute biggest threat to love is familiarity. When someone becomes too familiar, when you feel like you know absolutely everything about them and there's literally no mystery left, the spell breaks. The mind just naturally starts to wander. To combat this, you have to consciously maintain an element of mystery in your dynamic.
So how do you actually do that in real life? Well, here are a few steps to keep the energy alive. First, try stepping out of character slightly. Maybe dress a little differently one day or take your partner to a completely unexpected place. Second, continuously cultivate your own hidden depths and intelligence so you always have fresh, new ideas to bring to the dinner table. And third, consistently surprise your partner. Injecting these strategic little surprises is exactly what prevents the relationship's energy from fizzling out over the years.
Which brings us to our final provocative question to ask yourself today. At the end of a year with your partner, your team, or even yourself, are there any surprises left? Whether we're talking about maintaining our external leverage, embracing the challenges of our fate, or keeping the energy alive in our relationships, it all comes down to strategic action and deep self-awareness. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I highly encourage you to take these insights and start evaluating your own life dynamics.